Welcome back to the next episode of Len's 48 Willys Pickup Project. In this episode, we're going to start in my shop and we're going to work on the radiator. Now, I brought the radiator back with me because there was a couple little things that it needs, but otherwise the radiator is in really good condition. The other thing I want to do here is work on this tailgate. Now, Len has 3 tailgates. This is the best of the 3, and it's got everything we want on it, especially this logo that's embossed. And so I'm going to try to do some fixes on this and see if we can make this the tailgate that works for him. This is Len's radiator. It's in pretty good condition, and on the last video, we filled it with water when we test ran the engine and it didn't leak. So this radiator is in good condition and it can be used. There's just one thing. I brought it home with me because there's one thing I need to do, and that, if you look at this little tab right here, you can see it kind of kicks up, but it's just got a little funny shape. It's actually supposed to go up about 1 inch across and back down and have a hole. I'll show you a picture of one. This is what it's supposed to look like. This is from a truck at a junkyard that I had seen. So what I need to do is, I think I might just cut this off. I'll get a new piece of metal and very carefully weld that in. Now this is probably brazed onto a copper tank, so I'm going to have to be really careful welding it back on there. So I'll use kind of sheet metal welding technique, and just make this piece. But before I do that, I think I'm going to take this thing outside. I'm going to wash it up, get all the grime off of it, and I think I'll also flush it out. Okay, we're all washed up. Everything's clean now. I'll let Len decide if he wants to paint this, but at least we get the grime off. Now I made up this little plate. It's basically 1 inch high by 1 5/8 inches wide, and it's going to go in right here. But before this can go in, I'm going to end up taking this piece off here, and then I'll weld it in. I think we're ready to weld. I've got this position where I want it, and I said I was going to treat it like sheet metal because it is. This is 18 gauge sheet metal. I measured what was in there. This is exactly what they've got. And I'm just going to put a couple of tacks in here just to get started, and I just don't want to put a lot of heat into this, so I'll treat it just like I'm welding a body panel. Got it welded. I'm just welding it on the inside. The outside there, it's just, I don't want to get too close to that copper tank. So I think I'm going to just keep the welds right on this side. I'll show you in a minute. Now I've got a grinding disc here that's fairly square on the edges. I'm going to try to just clean this up a little bit very carefully. Okay, that's as much as I really care to do on this. I just need something that's strong and looks reasonably close to factory, and I think that does it right there. All right, I'm all done. I think that's going to work out just fine. There's plenty of weld in here to provide strength, and I haven't compromised any of the solder in here, so I think we're in really good shape. Before we start on the tailgate here, I want to go through and list out everything that needs attention. The first thing I actually showed in the last video, this had a pretty good bend to it, and I was able to just lay it down and hit it with a dead blow hammer and get that bend back out of there. So it's nice and straight. So the first thing's already done. Okay, let me lay this down. Well, you know what? Let's clean it up and see if we can show you the next thing. You notice this little flange right here. This is what attaches the top rail to the main metal of the tailgate, and you can see here it's all nice and straight on this end, and from this one over here it's straight. But if I stand back and I look at this, it starts to just bow way down and back up through here. So that needs attention. But the other thing you notice too is these were never super tight, but we're in pretty tight here against some metal, and the same as here, but we've got quite a gap here. So we're going to take care of that. The other thing I noticed is we got let me show this here. We got a pretty good flat spot right there. And so I'd like to, it's a series of them through here. I'd like to try to do something about that. We'll see if we can. All right. Out on this side, we've got a big old dent in here. I don't know. This is pretty thick metal. I don't know if there's much we can do with that. But we can look at it. This little latch piece here is bent out of shape, so we're going to need to straighten that out, as well as this piece right here. This has got to be flattened out again. The other side looks a lot better, but we've got some work to do in here too. You can kind of see where it's bent. So a little bit of straightening there. On this end, it looks like part of the base, the pivot, is stuck in here. So we're going to need to pull that. So we'll find a way to get that out of here as well. And then I think the last thing I was looking at was right here. We got a little bit of a pimple sticking up right there. So I'll try to knock that back down as gently, because I don't want to get into this embossing part. This is really pretty important to keep this intact. I'm going to try to flatten that piece too. Let's start with something easy to get a quick victory. We've got to get this pivot remnant out of here. So I'm going to just get a good grip on that with a vice grip. Oh, look at that. Okay, I was going to have to pound it out, but that was pretty easy. Okay, one down. Okay, I want to show you the construction of this tailgate so you get a better idea of what we're trying to do. This metal base piece actually makes up probably 90% of the metal in this tailgate. It's one piece of metal, and it's curled all the way around, and then it's got the flange that kicks down. Let's flip it over and you'll see kind of how it finishes up here. So it makes its way around and eventually kicks out onto this flange, and then it gets spot welded back onto itself. So I don't know how it got this way, but it looks to me like this curved piece has actually kind of opened itself back up and pulled out a little bit. Now, what I'd want to try, at least for starters, is maybe to get, you know, a block of wood or something in here and try to not just pound this down, but pound it kind of back in that way to get it to curve back in. Let's start with dead blow hammer. And I got a piece of oak here I used when I was working on the cab. I'd kind of narrowed it and rounded an edge. You know, this would be least likely to leave any sharp dents. But we're going to try to pound this thing kind of down and into here. I don't know if we're making progress or not. This is the worst of it right here. Knocking some rust free. Let's try it with a solid backing and see. Okay, I put a little more time into this and just focused on this section right here, and I think I've got it where I want it now. So this is pushed back in. Now we're up a little bit through here. You can see a gap. There's going to be a small gap there anyway, but I think I can now kind of work again in this edge here and using the same tools and pound this down and try to bring it in, at least so it's maybe in contact with this, and then you can see where the spot welds are. I just need to redo those spot welds. I think we got it. It's nice and straight now. I was able to drive this down pretty close to the surface of the tailgate metal there. And the rest of this will be basically drilling out some holes and plug welding this, and then I'll clamp it together when I do that, and that should close up this gap. I noticed while I was doing this work at the bottom of the tailgate, has a similar problem, and it looks like all the spot welds have just broken loose. So what I'm going to do here, I've already done some work to kind of pound this down. I'll do the same thing. I'll plug weld this, clamp it, and we should have the bottom too. think the next thing I want to do is take a warp out of this. It's not much. It's got just a little warp. You can see, I think straightening, it had a bigger warp. I think straightening this out and getting this thing where it belongs took a good portion of it out. But we still got just a little bit to deal with. So I'm going to take this outside and get it straightened out. Let me show you what I dreamed up for this. I've taken one end and fastened it to basically a pillar here on my pole barn. Nice and tight. Taking the other end and clamp that down. And I've got some good leverage here. Now I want to pull back on this. And that should give me the twist I need. It might take me a few tries. So let's give it a shot, see if it works. Okay, the top part here is the one that was up off the surface. So if I pull back on this, I should be able to persuade it back in a little bit. I'm going to try just a little bit at a time here. I don't want to overdo this. There's a lot of spring back. It felt like it moved there. So let's take it back to the table. Got it back on the table. Let's try it. I think we got it on the first try. That's it. Yeah, it's flat. Oh, that was easy. Now that we got the tailgate straightened out, I want to get my plug welds in here. And I'm just thinking about how to do these plug welds. I mean, you can see the little mark here where each of these plug welds are. So it's not like they were trying to hide it. But my history with plug welds, I'm kind of so-so on the work I do. And I'm a little concerned about drilling a hole through here and trying to get a plug weld in and make it actually look more like a spot weld. And I was kind of laying up last night thinking about it. Woke up and was trying to think about how to do this. I'm going to practice first. I'm going to take some 18 gauge, a couple of sheets, and I'm just going to keep working on those, plug weld those until I feel like I've really got it down. But the other idea I came up with is instead of plug welding from this side, I can plug weld from this side. And that way I've got a nice flat area. It's wide enough, and if I do a good enough job, I can just grind it off, kind of metal finish it so that you don't really see it. And if there is any remnant here, it'll be on the inside of the tailgate and not on the outside. So it's a matter, the tricky part here is a matter of locating this from the other side. So I think what I'm going to do is start by just marking. I want to actually plug weld right exactly where these spot welds are. So I'm going to mark on the back here where each of these plug welds are, and then I'll do some measuring to figure out where I need to drill my holes. Let me show you how I'm going to find center on this. I've taken just a old caliper I've got here, and I'll brace that against the top of this loop, and I'm going to set the inner edge right here in the center of this flange. Then when I go around and flip it over, I can mark it. So I'll show you how that works. So now all I have to do is get this lined up here. That might be a little tricky. I'll have to think about that. And I know this is where I need to drill my hole for that spot weld or the plug weld. Before I continue on and mark all of these and start drilling, there's a piece I forgot to show you. I actually forgot it was here, but we've got a pretty good rusted out section in the tailgate, and I could leave it till a little bit later, but as you can see by my mark there, one of my plug welds is going to land right in the center of this. So I think I'm going to cut this out, put a new piece in, and then we'll continue on with the plug welding. First thing I want to do is figure out how big a patch I need in here. I know I've got holes here, but I see what look like some more pinholes up here. So I'm going to just take a disc and just take all the paint, take it down to bare metal, maybe get a better look at the condition. Now that we're down to bare metal, I can see what we're working with. We know we've got this right here. Around these edges looks really good, so I don't think we need a huge patch. And as we come down here, we've got 3 more holes that I thought I saw earlier. So let's just mark out a little section here where we want to make a cut. I think I'm going to do this as one patch. So if we go right there, then we can just kind of start over this edge a little bit here. Okay, I'm going to cut this out and see what the edges look like. Let's get a look at this piece that I cut out of here. I guess it goes like that. Flip it over. Yeah, it's all rusted out in here. Must have just had a lot of moisture that sat down in this section. If you look here, though, there's an inner sleeve on this one that's also rusted out. And you can see here, they put another sleeve inside this. I think that's probably a factory feature just to give a little more strength to the top of the tailgate. I'm not going to worry too much about that. I am going to get this out of here as well and get this cleaned up, maybe get a little bit of OSPO in there to neutralize that rust. It's not going to get rid of it, but we'll do the most we can with this. I think after 70 plus years, it's going to survive just fine. And then I can make this patch. So I got a piece of scrap that'll fit right in here. It is 18 gauge. Now I just need to make up a template, figure out how big to make this and get the shape perfect. So I'm just going to put a piece of painter's tape over the top. We'll kind of crease along the edge here. This will leave a little bit of a line. And so that we are sure about this, I'm going to just take a pencil and try to define that a little bit better. All right, and just so I know, that's the top. Okay, that's the shape we need. And all we have to do is lay it on top of that and cut it out. Got my patch fitted in real nice. I'm going to start right here, just make sure this is as level as possible and tack that in, and then kind of work my way down, making sure that I've got a good tight fit right in here. All right, we're all welded up. I just need to grind these off and see where we're at. Okay, spared you the rest of the welding and grinding. I think we're in pretty good shape. There's a little bit here I could keep chasing, but I'm going to let Body Guy take care of that with a little bit of skim coat. We got a nice solid patch now. I got all my holes drilled for my plug welds. This is the bottom of the tailgate. There's quite a few. And then we've got all of them up above here. And if you look down in there, you can see I cleaned the metal up underneath it too. I'm not going to show you this, and I've shown this before, but I've just got a 1/4-inch drill bit that I ground flat. And once I've drilled this hole, I just go in there with that drill bit, and that takes the paint and rust off of the surface underneath. So I get a good, nice clean connection when I plug weld these. I took a little time here before I get started and I practice some plug welding. I've got four of them here. 1, 2, 3, 4 that ground flat. And then 1, 2, 3, 4 on this one. Experimenting with different heat. These I ran a little bit hotter, and I can see after grinding them, I probably could have laid just a little more weld down. But I feel like I've kind of got this figured out. And seems like both settings got plenty of penetration here without blowing through. So I think I'm going to go with the hotter setting when I do this tailgate. Okay, I've got them clamped in here real good. This is tight up against that bottom panel. Now when I plug weld it, I'm going to start actually right in the center on the metal underneath to get a good attachment to there. And then I'll just kind of work my way around to get that top part laid in. And if I do it right, we'll end up with a nice, fairly flat bead there. Let's get a good look at this. I think that's a good weld. Nice and strong. It's fairly flat. So I think I got my heat setting right. I'm going to flip it over. And you can see that dark spot there. And it's not burned through. So I think this is going to work. I'm just going to keep going like this now and get them all knocked out. Let's see. That's all the plug welds up along the top. And on the bottom. Now let me run and grind these off and I'll be back. Okay, we got all the welds ground off. It's all laying nice and flat. So that's part one. Now I'm going to move in close. You can still see some stuff around these edges. And what I'm going to do with that is just leave it alone and not try to overwork it. I'm going to just ask Jesse when he gets the tailgate to just skim this with a little body filler to fill these voids, kind of like what we need to do with this this line from that patch I put in. But he could fill that, and I think that'll be fine. Let me turn this thing around now. All right, that's the bottom. And you can see we've got a nice tight seam all the way along there. And, you know, while it may be up just a little bit between these, I'll show you an untouched factory seam. This is how they came from the factory. So I think we did as well as the factory. Let me flip it around. Okay, so there's the top of the tailgate again. I think we're nice and tight all the way along here. And we're nice and straight before it kind of dipped down. Let me show you the before picture. This is what that flange looked like when we started this process. Now here's two pictures where I drew lines through so you can see the difference. So that really did straighten everything out. So you can see that was all out of shape. Now I think we got it lined up where it needs to be. Next I want to work on this vertical support. You can see there's a pretty good dent right toward the top of this support. And we got a little bit of a problem there because I can't get in behind that. Now I know that doesn't need to be perfectly straight because if you look here, you're going to see there are a couple of spot welds in there. Those are factory spot welds, and there was always a little dimple right there. So it doesn't need to be flat. But if you look over on this side, you're also going to see the same thing where they've got a little bit of a dimple on those. I'm not going to try to take that out. I'm just going to leave that alone. That's original. But this one needs a lot of work, and I know how to do that. This is the back side of the tailgate. I made a mark opposite of where that dent is on the front, and I'm planning to drill a hole through here and then use one or all of these different rods to drive that dent out from behind. I'll start by using a step bit to put a hole in there, and I just want to make it big enough for that first rod that you see there. And then we'll try driving that dent out with this tiny rod for starters. We're making some progress, but that's a very small piece that I'm hitting. I think I need to open this up so I can get a little bit bigger surface on there and move this around a little bit more. I think that did it. Now, I wasn't worried about overshooting it because it's up just a little bit now. But now I can heat this up and I can hit it with like a body hammer and flatten it back down, and I think it'll be pretty much done. Okay, I did a little more work on it. I'll throw a straight edge on there. I think that's pretty good. Now, before I go out and patch up that hole in the back, I've got another thing I want to work on, and just things move. I want to have access to it. But you can see how this drops way down and back up. So I'm going to flatten that out next. Okay, this piece, it's flat here, it dips down, and then it curls way up over here. So I'm going to start by trying to knock this down, and I think the easiest way to do that is to heat it first so I don't have to pound on it so hard. So we got a good start. I knocked this down. Now I can flip this over and try to flatten this piece. I'm going to heat that up again since I'm working on 2 layers here. I think we've got it. I think I've done as much as I really want to do with this. So we get a look at it. It's not perfect, but if we sight down this line, I think we're in good shape. Upon further review, this little spot that I said here was a spot weld is not. The spot welds would be out here. This is just a plain old garden variety dent. And I had 2 more on this side that I had identified as spot welds. So scratch what I said about that. I basically got 3 more holes now that I need to patch up. Now the other thing I want to do is straighten out this latch. It's got a little bit of a bend to it. And I think I'm just going to do that with a little bit of heat down right in here where it's bent, and then get a wrench on there and just pull on it. Before I start heating and bending on this thing, I wanted to just take a look and see how this was going to work. What I did notice is with this all being basically 18 gauge sheet metal, even in layers, when I start pulling on this, there's a lot of flex right here. And I think it's probably going to be a lot easier to bend this than to bend this thick this latch. So what I want to do is put a pipe clamp on this. We'll run the full length, snug it down, and that will keep this from wanting to twist. So let me snug it down. We'll just see how much we can do with that. Okay, I think that'll work. All right, all that's left is to weld a patch into that access hole I made. So I just ground up a patch, put it on a magnet, put it in there, get it welded up. And then the only thing I got left to do is try to strip the paint off of this, and then we're done. Okay, got her welded. Time to grind it off. I think we're done. Almost like it never happened. Moving on, we're going to work on this little piece right here now. This is a pretty good sharp dent in here, and I want to knock that down. But I think what I'm going to do is heat it up to begin with, make it a little bit easier to knock down, and maybe it won't spread out and kind of deform things here. So we'll hit this with a torch first, then we'll come back and hit it with a hammer. Okay, I think I got it all pounded out, but I'm going to take some of this burnt stuff off and go out into the paint a little bit, get it down to bare metal so we can see what it looks like. All right, with the paint off, it's a lot easier to see what's going on here now. But I think this is it. I think this is nice and flat. So no more work to do there. That last segment that you just watched was about 2 hours of paint stripping on this tailgate, and it's getting kind of hot out. So I'm pretty much done with this. There's still lots of little edges that need to be worked on. I'm going to talk to Len about that. I know that he has access to a sandblaster, and I think we could maybe use that to get into those little tight spots. But I think this tailgate is going to work. It's in really nice shape. Now, next time what we're going to do on this is we're going to fit this up on his box. I know one of the sides of his box is leaning out just a little bit, and we need to bend it back into shape. We'll use a tailgate to help get that aligned and exactly where we want it. So we're making good progress. This is a long-running project, and I want to thank you for sticking around and watching, and I hope to see you next time.